Florida's Governor Rick Scott has said this is the most catastrophic storm his state has ever seen, and he sounded the alarm all week for people to get out of its way. And Governor Scott is with us now. Governor, good morning to you, sir.
Good morning. Well, it's starting to hit us. I talked to a friend in the Keys this morning, and they're getting pounded there. It's going to go up my hometown, Naples, Florida, and all up the West Coast. What's really scary is the storm surge. We've prepared all week, although there's always something else you can do. My job is to protect everybody. I'm going to do everything I can, spare no resource to make sure everybody's as safe as possible.
You think the West Coast was as ready as they should have been, considering I think a lot of folks thought this was headed to the East Coast of your state?
Well, I talked all week about don't be complacent on the West Coast because you never know where these things are going to go. We have now over 400 shelters open. People are, I looked at all the traffic cameras this morning. People are off the roads. I think they're hunkering down now. They've gotten to our shelters. I know there's a lot of people around the world, around the country that want to help us. You can text 202-20222 and make a $10 donation. We still need volunteers. You can go to volunteerflorida.org. But I can tell you what, people are resilient here. They're strong. And the most important thing we have is not our beaches or our amusement park. It's our people. We have wonderful people here that are working together.
You say you've been looking at the traffic cameras. I don't know if you've had a chance, Governor, to take a look at some of the cameras out of Miami right now. We've been looking in on Mike Seidel on the Weather Channel, and that city right now is getting absolutely buffeted by high winds and some heavy rains. Over on the other coast, I want to mention, you mentioned, your home near Naples. You're in that area where Al is talking about that 10-foot storm surge, right where I guess you've moved your family, gotten them up to Tallahassee, where you are, but your neighborhood in Naples is going to take a lot of the brunt of this.
Oh, it's going to be horrible. I looked at some cameras this morning, and the waves are already up in the Naples beach. It's going to be 10 to 15 feet above ground level. I mean, that's going to be devastating. We've worked to get everybody to evacuate. I hope everybody has. You've got to hunker down now. Yeah, we need everybody's prayers. But we're a resilient state, and we're going to take care of everybody. We're going to spare no expense. The federal government's here, the state government's here, local government's here. We're going to do everything we can. We've got great first responders. We're going to do everything we can to take care of everybody.
Governor, as a guy who lives in Naples, walk us through what 10 feet of water might mean to that city area.
Well, if you go along the beach area, the typical house that's been there for any period of time is typically about 11 feet above mean high tide. It doesn't really matter anymore, though, because it's above what they're saying is 10 to 15 feet above the ground level. What everybody thought was, well, that's not bad because it's based on high tide. It's not. It's above ground level. So, and it's a pretty flat town. The question is going to be is how far it goes in, but it's going to be devastating to all those homes on the beaches. The question is going to be how far inland it goes. So my goal all week has been that people evacuate. If you're in an evacuation zone, get out. We have got good emergency management people around the state. But now we've got to hunker down. We've got to watch out for each other. We've got to pray for each other. And I know people will.
Yeah. And we think back, of course, there have been so many storms that your state has dealt with. Hurricane Andrew still looms large. Do you fear that this storm could be worse in terms of its damage?
Well, if you look at the size of it, it's so much bigger than Andrew. I was in the hospital business back when Andrew hit. I evacuated hospitals. I had a hospital completely demolished. We had to hand bank patients. It looks like on the East Coast we're not going to get the same storm surge, but they're getting buffeted by all the winds. I mean, 130-mile-an-hour winds is devastating to our state, but this is going to impact our whole state, and now it looks like it's going to impact the Panhandle. So it's what we've talked about all week. Don't anybody in the state be complacent. But it's going to hit all the way up to Tampa, all the way up to even Tallahassee, where the capital is.
And you mentioned that, and that's one of the problems, too. Because it's going to go south to north throughout most of your state, all those responders, all those FEMA resources are staged north of here, and they've got to wait until that storm goes completely through, until they can start making their way on whatever's left of the roadways down to the south, where people need that stuff.
It's FEMA, it's our utilities, it's moving water and food, all those things. you've got to wait. You've got to wait until it passes. So, you know, I do daily phone calls with all of our utilities, try to get as many assets down. They've already committed from out of state, 23,000 people are coming down to help get our power back on. We're going to lose a lot of power. We do have a lot of resources already in Orlando. So as it passes Orlando, we'll be able to get those trucks on the road and get them south. But it's going to take a while. That's why we've said all week, 3 days of water, 3 days of food. Understand that we're going to do everything we can to help you. We've got to save everybody first. Then we'll be able to do everything we can to make your life more convenient, because it's going to be inconvenient. It's inconvenient to be at a friend's house or at a shelter. But if you think what I'm worried about the most, it's a storm surge. We've never had it. I mean, it's nothing. Andrew didn't have the storm surge like this. 10 to 15 feet above ground level, even 5 or 6 feet. It's hard to believe anybody will survive that. If it comes through your house and just flushes in and flushes out, and that's going to be very difficult to survive.
Well, Governor, we hope people heeded your warnings. They've been repeated all week long. Governor, good morning. Thank you so much for being with us, and keep in touch, would you?
Hello, Today fans. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking that button down there and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives.